The Chicago Sky lost their game to the Seattle Storm on Tuesday, but it certainly wasn't at fault of their defense, as they were certainly up to the task in terms of execution of scheme, attention to detail, and just generally being connected on that end of the floor. And directly in the crosshairs of everything that they were desiring to take away on defense was the defending scoring champion from last season, Jewell Loyd. And what they were doing was they were getting into a lot of ice coverage. So any of Jewell Loyd's catches, particularly on the outer thirds of the floor, they were keeping towards the outer thirds of the floor by taking away the middle drives and funneling Jewell to pockets of the floor where they knew help would be at. In addition to that, outside of the two players directly involved in the scheme, they were also seeing great presences in nail help as well as low man help to wall off on any potential cuts, but also take over and help the helper in scenarios as well on drives and things of that nature. So it was just generally a fun film session, just looking at what the Sky were able to execute on consistency on the defensive end, particularly against Jewell Loyd, one of the most prolific scorers in the league, especially from the guard position. And I wanted to also make sure that we had a chance to listen to an opportunity I had to ask Teresa Weatherspoon following that game about the efforts that we saw from Diamond Deshieds, who was solely tasked with the initial part of defending Jewell on most of the reps that we're going to be looking at. So I'm going to pause it here. We're going to check out that conversation I was able to have quickly with Teresa Weatherspoon, and then dive into the film session from there.
Hey, Coach, I know the offense and the turnovers are getting a lot of attention, but it really seemed like cohesively the defense did a good job with the game plan on Jewell Loyd. And at the point of attack with a lot of that was Diamond Deshieds. Can you just kind of speak to what you saw from her and from the team as a whole and execution on that end?
Diamond did a great job of what we asked her to do defensively. And there's a lot of things that we have to really correct on defensively, of making sure that we're always in help to be able to help each other. You help the helper. So we got to correct a lot of those things. But when you talk about Diamond and the job that she did tonight against an incredible basketball player in Jewell, we're pretty pleased where we are, where she is, especially getting on the floor and playing against a player like that.
All right, let's go ahead and dive into the film. First play here, we're going to be seeing the Seattle Storm just setting up shop on offense, flowing a little bit of side-to-side action. Ultimately, is going to get to the second side, and now they're trying to get the ball into Jewell Loyd's hands in the middle of the shot clock. Now we're going to see, like I talked about in the opening, Diamond Deshieds on Jewell. Good job bodying up, putting pressure on the ball, or putting pressure on Jewell, rather, and just trying to make things tough to navigate, making life difficult to navigate in the half court against their defense. Great job. This is all going to be to help set a tone. Her pressure ultimately makes Jewell counter into just setting a screen for Ezi Mabigor to attempt to get downhill. But again, with Diamond being just on schedule with everything that she's supposed to be doing in the defensive principles for the Sky, she's going to gap off of Jewell as she's setting the screen, allowing for Elizabeth Williams to then slide to the other side, cut off the potential drive from Ezi Mabigor. Job well done in relation between those two. And now we're going to see the ball ultimately get to Jewell Loyd's hands. And right on the catch, you see Diamond Deshieds arriving on the catch in the grill, taking away the airspace, just making things uncomfortable, breaking rhythm, hard to navigate on defense, or on offense, rather, against their defense. And you're going to see them ultimately setting up shop to get into ice coverage. But because of the pressure applied on ball, the screen's not even going to get a chance to be set, because Diamond is going to be able to kind of dislodge the ball a little bit, deflect it off of Jewell's foot. Is going to end up being Sky basketball. That's the type of tone you want to set with pressure on the ball, activity, communication, and just generally being on task with whatever it is you're supposed to be doing within the scheme. Job well done there. Now we're going to see a bit of a secondary break here. It's going to be Dana Evans now on Jewell Loyd, and we're going to be seeing her do a good job steering the wheel at the point of attack for the scheme that they're executing to. So we see her taking away the middle as we see Nneka Ogwumike coming in to try to set a screen here. They're going to do a great job between Dana Evans and Angel Reese in ice coverage here on this rep. So we see them, obviously, like I talked about, condensing the floor, just really taking away a lot of the reads that Jewell would typically make if she had more airspace and if she was operating from the middle third of the floor. What this ice coverage is doing is limiting the options in terms of the decisions that Jewell can make, making it more predictable for the defense to anticipate, but also condensing the floor and just generally getting the ball out of Jewell Loyd's hands more often than not, if not making it extremely tough to navigate. And we see the extremely tough to navigate portion of that here. Talked about the pressure from Dana Evans. Talked about the pressure being applied as well, condensing the court from Angel Reese. Again, talking about the Seattle Storm, manipulating action again with another empty side pick and roll. Just trying to make it to where they're going against this coverage and scheme in space. The Sky are going to do a great job countering and putting pressure on the ball and covering that space, not just with the two players directly involved in action, but you can also see with Ezzy Magbegor spaced to the second side opposite of the action. She's being guarded by Elizabeth Williams. Elizabeth Williams, knowing that this is an empty corner action that they're getting into in addition to the scheme that they're in defensively, already peeled in early at the nail to take away the potential roller should the ball go to the short roll to NECA so that she could help Angel Reese. And they would kind of fall in succession from there defensively to keep the shell intact. Job well done from the Chicago Sky. Ultimately, we're going to see Jewell try to counter and really try to force the hand of Dana Evans trying to get into the middle. Dana says absolutely no, continuing to execute the scheme and keeping her leverage, forces Jewell to ultimately have to split, also losing the ball, and Dana almost comes away with a steal at the steal frame here. Great job from the Chicago Sky. You can also see, like I talked about, with Elizabeth Williams sliding from the nail to help the helper in this scenario, really condensing the court, taking away reads. Really good job well done from those three players between Dana Evans, Angel Reese, and Elizabeth Williams. Ball's going to end up getting kicked to the second side, and the job's not done. This is where you really have to start to nail the principles in everything you're doing. Arriving on the catch for the shooters. Kennedy Carter's there on time. Marina Mabry, who was once the low man, is now going to be flying over to ultimately run Skylar Diggins-Smith off the three-point line. Job well done there. Now you're going to also pause it here, and we're going to be paying attention to Elizabeth Williams now on Ezzy Magbegor again. She's already in position to potentially help should Skylar Diggins-Smith decide to go baseline. Skylar's going to end up electing to attack the top foot, but before we get to the next portion, we also want to pay attention to Dana Evans. Again, so we talked about everything that Dana did, playing point guard defensively at the point of attack, steering the wheel of the coverage, and just helping for everything to be intact from the point of attack. Job well done there, and we talked about what happens from there. Now, if Dana was to stop playing defense here, ultimately Skylar Diggins-Smith attacking the top foot of Marina Mabry would allow for her to get a paint touch and would have compromised the defense in some capacity. But because Dana does not stop playing defense here and rotates from, like I said, guarding Jewell at the point of attack to now being in help positioning, she's in position here to where if Skylar goes baseline and engages Elizabeth Williams, she can sink into the legs of Ezzy Magbegor, take away that potential dump-off pass, and just generally be in rotation early to take away a potential look and flatten out the defense or flatten out the offense, keep the defensive shell intact. Because Skylar Diggins-Smith elects to attack the top foot of Marina Mabry as she runs off the three-point line, because Dana Evans didn't stop playing defense, she's in perfect position to provide help and support in the gap. She's able to apply pressure on the ball, really speeds up the clock, and makes the vision tough for Skylar Diggins to make this skip pass to Jewell Loyd as she's attempting to. It's all errand. It's going to end up being a ball in the Chicago Sky. Great job on that possession generally by Dana Evans as well as Angel Reese and Elizabeth Williams. And then this next rep, we're going to be looking again at Dana Evans at the point of attack. This time she's starting here on Skylar Diggins-Smith. They're going to flow into a little bit of handback action. Ultimately, we see Dana go under the screen to funnel it towards Angel Reese, who's at the level now. She's going to give her a quick one-step jab, as we see here. Just trying to help for Dana Evans to buy time for her to navigate the screen. In addition to that, we talked about Ezzy Magbegor and her spacing in the last rep. We're going to look at Ezzy spaced on the opposite side of where the ball is on this possession again, and look at where, in relation to that, Elizabeth Williams is. Another empty corner pick and roll for the Seattle Storm. Elizabeth Williams peeled in extremely early, pitching the tent at the nail to wall off any potential drives that might come towards that middle third of the floor to try to help, not just for Angel Reese as she jabs and recovers on her one-step hedge, but also for Dana Evans as she navigates the initial screen at the point of attack. Job well done there from all existing parties that I just spoke to again. And as we see it kick to Ezzy Magbegor to the second side, we're going to see Elizabeth Williams in a one-way closeout. If she was late getting to the nail, it might have been a drive for Skylar Diggins-Smith down the channel of the floor, but it also would have put her in compromise because she's in movement, having to go to close and recover. But because she's peeled in early, it makes it a one-way closeout where there's no close needed. She's peeled in early, and she's able to just recover on the closeout out to the Ezzy Magbegor, who's on the catch. Job well done, keeping the defensive shell intact. They get a quick little jab back here from Kennedy Carter. Job well done there. We're going to see a scripted cut here on this trip side as they try to just respace with Victoria Vivians, cutting to create some movement, get a little bit of reaction out of the defense. Ball's going to eventually be attempted to get to Jewell Loyd on the second side. And now we're going to see Lindsey Allen in position. Gets a quick deflection, almost comes away with a steal. Nonetheless, keeps them in scheme. And now they're getting into ice covered again on Jewell Loyd. We're going to be looking at Elizabeth Williams being the big that's involved directly in the defensive scheme here. Is going to do a good job after the pressure and the deflection being applied from Lindsey Allen. Helping over on Jewell Loyd. She's going to lose a little bit of leverage here. And we're going to see Kennedy Carter already peeled in early on the block to help the helper in this scenario. But this is one of the Sky's weakness within their coverages on defense, that they're certainly taking steps to address him, but it's still something that's a work in progress. And that's when they get into these scenarios where you have to help the helper multiple times within the scheme or within whatever context the defense you're getting into. So I talked about Kennedy already being peeled in to help the helper on Elizabeth Williams, but no one's there to help Kennedy Carter. And as we see her step over, Ezzy Magbagor is ultimately going to be wide open. The defensive dominoes fall, and they're going to end up getting two. Played great defense for a majority of that shot clock in the possession, but just the slightest bit of a breakdown with 4 seconds left allows for the Seattle Storm to get an uncontested layup. That's, again, just the steps in progress for the Chicago Sky. Great defense. They just got to play defense for the entire 24, and it's just something that they're continuing to work towards getting to, and they're certainly going to get there. They're certainly shown to be there. And now we're going to see a little bit more of the same here with the Sky. In their ice coverage, we see Kennedy Carter jump into the screen side to force her to go baseline with Jewell Loyd, knowing that she has help in Isabel Harrison, who's peeled in high up to the level of the screen, funneling towards the sideline and towards the baseline. Job well done in coverage from Isabel Harrison, flattening out action. And then we're going to also talk about, in addition to Kennedy Carter and Isabel Harrison, we see it's Nneka Ogwumike that's spaced topside now, and we see Brianna Turner at the nail taking over for Isabel Harrison as she's engaged on ball, taking away the roller. Job well done from all existing parties there. Brianna Turner's down to catch. Basically, her and Isabel Harrison are looking to end up switching here, but because the communication is not strong enough, they're both going to end up flowing towards Nneka Ogwumike, and because they flow into another screen as we see the pitch to Jewell Loyd from Mercedes Russell, we see Brianna Turner and Isabel Harrison both flow towards Nneka. That's going to ultimately leave Mercedes Russell wide open on the roll. Defense is compromised, uncontested layup for the Seattle Storm. Again, just little things that they're working through in multiple different contexts of defense to where they're going to be able to keep the defensive shell intact a little bit more consistently in those help-the-helper scenarios in particular. That's like maybe the only weakness within their defense at the moment, outside of a couple of odd moments where they just don't have any gap presences and help. Nonetheless, early part of the season again, and they're at such a high level right now, and the energy is so high that they can often navigate those lapses just with activity and being able to cover up for it in that manner. Getting back to the ice coverage here again, we see Diamond Deshieds back on Jewell Loyd here, and we're gonna ultimately see them just getting into a little bit of 77 double screens with their both of their front court pieces that are on the floor right now. We see Diamond do a good job navigating those screens to where the bigs can't be engaged. Job well done there. And now we're going to see it flow into a hand back action, flowing back to the same side of the floor that action started on. Nothing comes of that. Want to also hat tip Angel Reese here on this quick just kind of jab at. Just about time for Diamond Deshieds to get back in rotation. Job well done. No action comes, and now they're in the middle of the shot clock. He's going to kick over to Skylar Diggins-Smith, and you can already see Dana Evans up there on the catch, closing the airspace. Job well done. Ultimately, we're going to see her just going at it one-on-one with Skylar Diggins-Smith, and just the application of pressure on the ball from Dana Evans, the ability to dislodge the ball, slide her feet, ultimately force this turnover. Again, just the little things with the Sky, just nailing these things within their coverage, within their schemes is just so important for them. They flip that into two. And now we see Marina Mabry on Jewell Loyd. Again, another empty corner, empty side pick and roll attempt from the Seattle Storm against ice coverage from the Chicago Sky. As I pause it here, we see Marina Mabry navigating the screen. We want to make note of where Angel Reese is in perfect position as Marina is funneling Jewell Loyd towards her in the coverage. In addition to that, also talking about, like we mentioned in the opening, the nail help In the low help, we see Dana Evans at that opposite block, ready to pounce and help if she's needed. And then we also see at the nail in support, it's another rep with Elizabeth Williams by way of Ezzy Mabagor being spaced topside. And the protections within everything that we're looking at from the onset of the possession here are as they need to be. And that's where you got to be preemptive with your rotations to execute in this scheme. We see them doing just that here. We see the pocket pass now go to Neko Gumake. And again, protection-wise, because Elizabeth Williams is so early in rotation at the nail, once the pocket pass comes, as they try to counter the ice coverage from the Chicago Sky, she's already there early to help the helper and cover up for Angel Reese. Job well done there. We see a quick jab at here from Diamond Deshieds, and she's ultimately going to end up switching here with Elizabeth Williams. And just look at the rotation here from Elizabeth Williams. We slowed it down and we talked about what she's doing here. Now watch it kind of happen in real time. This is how you have to execute, especially from the nail in particular against ice coverage. Pocket pass, she's there early. They get a 45 cut. She's there to cover up for Diamond Deshieds on that. And because of the energy and the activity levels of Elizabeth Williams from the nail with her rotations to now in help, and now just scrambling and finding somebody to cover on this 45 cut from Victoria Vivians, she's able to force a travel, and it's going to ultimately be, like I said, a turnover, Chicago Sky basketball. And then here on this rep, another one with Diamond Deshieds on Jewell Loyd. She's going to do a good job. The defender that's supposed to be helping, who's ultimately going to be Elizabeth Williams, isn't there early just because the screener isn't there early. But Diamond just entrusting that her defender is going to be where she needs them to be. Going to jump this coverage. Ultimately, Elizabeth Williams, unsurprisingly, is going to get in position as she's customary to doing. Flatten out action. They get nothing out of that early attempt in the quick screen in the empty side again. Diamond's going to stay attached to the hip. And Diamond's not going to really need any help from anyone else on this rep, as we see Jewell just working to try to find a pocket of space, and Diamond is just conceding absolutely nothing. Takes away that initial look, and then takes away this one after the screen goes away. A little bit of separation created. Diamond does not stop defending, though, and she's able to ultimately get up an effective contest, impacting the release of Jewell Loyd. And you see where this shot ends up going off the glass, doesn't even touch the rim. And the Sky are going to end up flowing through defense from there. But again, just another job well done at the point of attack, steering the wheel from defense from Diamond Deshieds. And now in this rep, we're going to be seeing from sideline out of bounds, another rep with Diamond Deshieds on Jewell Loyd. Catch is deep in the corner this time. You can already kind of see how things are playing out. As I pause it here, though, look to the second side. You can already see the rotation coming from Elizabeth Williams. Again, looking at who spaced where, talked about the Sky bigs helping off of the opposing bigs of the Seattle Storm, whoever was not involved directly in action. Here, that's Elizabeth Williams. You can see her already loading up in the gaps to support with help early. She goes from initially directly at the nail, 2-9-ing, as you can see her 2-9-ing, just trying to reset the clock so she doesn't get a 3-second call. And as I let it kind of flow through in real time, she's going to respace one more time to reset the clock, and then she pounces. And because of the timing at which she decides to pounce with help, in addition to Diamond Deshieds not completely losing leverage on this drive from Jewell Loyd, that all is going to force Jewell from trying to drive and get to the basket to having to go to a counterpunch with this behind-the-back dribble to try to create space. Job well done from Elizabeth Williams and showing the help to force her to go to a counter. Also a job well done even more so from Diamond Deshieds, not completely losing leverage and losing contain. Gets up a decent enough contest. They send that shot off script. The Sky are going to end up compiling yet another stop. And now going into the second half reps, just kind of looking at things. We got Brianna Turner on the floor, applying pressure on the ball with Ezzy Mabagor. Good job from the Chicago Sky. And now we're going to see Diamond Deshieds again on ball with Jewell Loyd, with this time Isabel Harrison guarding Nneka Ogwumike in the empty side pick and roll. So they try to get into it. Izzy shoots up to the level of the screen. In addition to Diamond Deshieds applying pressure on the ball, they get the pocket pass. And you can see Breezy Turner, like I talked about, helping off of Ezzy Mabagor, who spaced the pass away topside. She's there early with that rotation. She's there to cover up for Isabel Harrison. They essentially switch. And now Breezy Turner is going to be playing one-on-one with the roller here. Takes over for the roller. Now she's playing one-on-one in the post. Sends up an errant shot. Sky going to get another stop. Again, that nail help and everything scheme-wise that they're doing in this film session is just as important as anything else, providing that extra layer of protection around the two players that are directly involved defending action. And now we're going to see Diamond Deshieds now doing another good job in ice coverage. Screen not being set initially, but she's jumping just out of trust and knowing where Elizabeth Williams is going to be. In addition to that, you see at the time in the clock, it's the fourth quarter, 6:29 on the clock. The fourth quarter chaos-inducing activity from Elizabeth Williams has to be noted. I speak to it ad nauseum, but we're going to see it in detail here. As we see them again jumping the ice coverage, you see Diamond Deshieds jumping to funnel her, Jewell Loyd, towards Elizabeth Williams. Now, spacing-wise, they do a better job, the Seattle Storm, with this exchange between Nneka Ogwumike and Skylar Diggins-Smith, and just really trying to clear that nail. That's what they're trying to counter to here. Trying to manipulate space a little bit more, clear that nail, and make it where it's Nneka Ogwumike that's spaced instead of Ezi McBegor. And trying to see how the Chicago Sky want to react in the action by way of that particular manipulating the spacing and manipulating the matchups. But because it's Elizabeth Williams in action, she's able to get a deflection, and this deflection is going to buy just enough time for this low rotation from Marina Mabry, as well as the help from the nail and Angel Reese to help condense the floor on Ezi McBegor's catch. Ultimately, Elizabeth Williams is going to be able to get back, and we're going to see Marina Mabry able to get back. They keep the defensive shell intact. Angel Reese is going to do a good job closing out to Nneka Ogwumike. Lindsay Allen's going to do a good job recovering back to Skylar Diggins-Smith as all three of those defenders spray back out to their original matchups. Job well done. You keep the defensive shell intact. After initial action, you're forcing them to work through multiple layers of their offense, now towards the middle or a late part of the shot clock. Try to get into a handoff. Good pressure from Lindsay Allen on the ball. Again, now another rep with ice coverage again on the backside now. They're going to get it back to the nail on the short roll, and now it's Diamond Deshieds' opportunity to provide nail help. She's been getting a lot of support from the nail and protection all game. Now it's her turn to return a favor. She does just that, and she's not just showing just because that's her responsibility. She's doing it with activity, and she's looking to impact the ball, and that's exactly what she's doing here. If she doesn't get this deflection, that's, again, one of the league's best scorer from last season is going to be wide open for a catch-and-shoot opportunity that she's more than capable of knocking down. But because of this deflection from Diamond Deshieds, it's able to just add just enough chaos to force another late contested three-point opportunity from Jewell Loyd and the Seattle Storm, to which Diamond goes from getting that deflection from the nail, helping the helper, ultimately navigating the late clock screen, getting up another contest that's going to impact the release of Jewell. This is just such good detailed defense from the Chicago Sky, especially from Diamond Deshieds and Elizabeth Williams. Job well done there. Sky get yet another stop. And then we're going to be looking at one more rep here to kind of end things in this film session. This is another fun one. Looking at Elizabeth Williams. She's going to be the low man this time on this empty action between the Seattle Storm. They try to get into, as a counter to everything we talked about on the last rep, them countering the manipulation of space with the matchups, who's involved directly in action, and who's spaced where. I'm going to talk about them. Another counter that they went to in the second half of this game was going to wedge action. So we're going to ultimately see a quick pitch from Skylar Diggins-Smith to Jewell Loyd. Again, we're going to make note that this corner is emptied. And as we see them kind of flow through to the wedge part of the action that I'm speaking to, this screen here set from Skylar Diggins-Smith for Nneka Ogwumike is being set to force Angel Reese to have to navigate this screen. And by way of forcing Angel Reese to have to navigate this screen, what they're trying to do is either A, create a pull-up pocket for Jewell Loyd to ultimately come off of this screen to be able to settle in and get up a decent shot quality attempt and rhythm for her coming off of the screen from Nneka, or be able to create a driving pocket for Jewell to come off of the screen, ultimately being able to turn the corner and get downhill. But because of, first of all, the pressure being applied by Diamond Deshieds on the catch, secondly, the navigation of the screen to come from Diamond Deshieds, she's able to wall off and completely neutralize the counterpunch that the Seattle Storm are trying to throw into the action. So much that the vaunted nail help that we've talked about is so important in scheme here for the Sky isn't even needed from Lindsay Allen. As she sees that Diamond has this locked down, She doesn't even have to help at this. She can just stay true to her responsibilities. And now this is where the low man part of it comes into play, as I talked about Elizabeth Williams at the beginning of this possession. As McGregor spaced to the second side of the action again, we're seeing Elizabeth Williams gapping off of her, providing an extra layer of protection and help in rim protection. And we see as this ball crosses the free throw line, Elizabeth Williams getting to space and positioning for help. But again, because Diamond is just so good with the screen navigation here at the helm of the possession at the point of attack, stays so well attached to the hip of Jewell Loyd, Elizabeth Williams isn't even needed truly to get up a contest, but her presence is certainly felt and speeds up Jewell Loyd's positioning to where she ultimately puts up this shot from. But Diamond Deshieds just holds it down yet again. Great reps from the Chicago Sky in this game. Really speaking to where they are defensively, yes, they do have the helper scenario that really hurt them in those first couple of games against the Dallas Wings. Continues to just kind of show up in subtle moments. They're sussing through that collectively, but generally speaking, their defense is in a great space. They're looking to dictate time and time and time again, and they're looking for consistency with applying pressure on the ball in addition to all of that. And this level of execution and scheme, especially as they continue to build chemistry with one another, is really going to pay off long term. Nonetheless, a great foundation has been set for this team, and I'm excited to see where they're going to get to defensively with the likes of Camila Cardoso returning soon, as well as them just generally building up more chemistry together. This Chicago Sky team is going to be fun to watch defend all season long.